Hi guys, Tuku here with a new video, and this video will be a targeting tier list video for arenas in 10.1 Dragonflight. And you could also see it for pretty much every season because they are not going to inherently change how the specs are going to function. I'm going to say that it is a very general tier list. Again, it depends if you're a caster, it depends if you're a melee, depends if you are like whatever class you're playing. But in general, I'm going to give you the best targets you have to focus in solo shuffle, for example, in 3v3 and also in 2v2, but mostly in solo shuffle because, again, less coordination. If there is coordination, you can target anyone, but without coordination, those are the targets that you should go for if you are like facing them. Now, I'm going to try to make it quick, because there is not a lot of discussion behind it. It is either killable or it's not killable. So I'm going to give you an example on the tier list. So we have must targets. So those are the classes or specs that you want to target like 99% of the time, except like if there is like another must target versus you, right? If you have two must targets, you have to decide which one you want to focus more. You have great targets, so it means that they are actually susceptible to dying or susceptible to be less effective because you are going on them. Because again, a target should also be someone that you are going to target and make them a bit harder to actually like function. Like for example, an affliction warlock, for example, it's not really killable, but if you're letting him loose, he's going to wreck everyone. So you want to target him, for example. A target means that it is like a average target. You have no other choice. There is no must targets or great targets in versus you. So those are the targets you should go for. The bad targets. So there are like some bad targets that can be killable, but it's really a decision that you have to make based on your spec or class. And sometimes a bad target is a good target, but those are the general bad targets. And then you have like the classes or specs that are like, do not target category. Now, those are like most likely the tanks, for example. In general, you don't really want to go for healers, for example, but if you are like capable to kill a healer, then it becomes a bad target or a target. But there's not a lot of healers that are actually good, like must targets. Alright, let's talk right away and start with Blood DKs. I think Blood DKs is a do not target tank. You really do not want to target them in solo shuffle. If you do face versus them, it's pretty rare, very rare even. But if you do face them, just ignore them. That's the best way to deal with it. Frost DK, I think Frost DKs are highly susceptible to be killed. It is most likely a great target. I could even say must targets, but again, I'm thinking casters and melees, and a caster has a bit more difficulties to kill a DK, although they have like a lot of defensives that are actually used to be offensive. Like for example, if you're stunning him in a Pillar of Frost, they are most likely going to use Icebound Fortitude instead of using Icebound Fortitude to actually like repel damage. They're going to use it offensively to actually be able to keep on doing damage. So it's a great target. Unholy DKs are also a great target. They have less defensives overall, like the class in general is suffering from defensives. Unholy DKs are a bit more safer than Frost DKs because they're not going to use Icebound Fortitude like offensively normally, because you're like not dependent on a 1 minute go. But it is still a target that is like killable. If you're like a Fury Warrior or Arms Warrior or Enhancement Shaman, for example, you're going to enjoy to face an Unholy DK. It's really killable, really easy to kill as well, and in general, it's a good target to go for. Havoc Demon Hunter, I think it's a bad target. I'm going to explain why. Havoc Demon Hunter in Solo Shuffle has enough tools to be able to escape death. Again, Blur, very nasty. Darkness, very nasty as well. They have Glimpse. They can actually like avoid a lot of CC and a lot of damage with Metamorphosis if they are using it correctly. Yes, you can kill them. That's why it's a bar target and not do not target spec. You can be able to kill him in a stun, for example, if you're able to use a stun. But imagine if you're like a rogue and you kidney shot and he is glimpsing that kidney shot, you pretty much like have your whole setup gone for 30 seconds. And that's for like a lot of specs. Like for example, Stormbolt has the same CD as the Glimpse, like the Vengeful Retreat. I don't know how it's called anymore, and they can time it pretty well. So I think overall, I do not really like to go for DHs, especially if you're a caster too. It's very difficult to actually kill a DH as a caster, but even more if you're like someone that is based around stuns and they are capable to actually escape death. Of course, a bad DH and a great DH, that's a whole difference, but you should probably just try to target the teammate of the DH in threes. Of course, if you're like facing double DH, you don't really have a choice, right? But that's pretty much how I see it. Vengeance Demon Hunter, the same, do not target. In Soul Shuffle, you should really not go for it. Of course, in RPGs and such, if they have the flag, just go for it, right? But we're talking about Soul Shuffle, like really 3v3. In RPGs, there is a lot of like coordination, and again, if like you're doing a random BG, it is anything goes, right? Balanced Druid. Now that's a difficult one. I feel like it's a very good target because you do want to kill him and you do not really want to give him a lot of space, but is it a easy target though? I don't think so. I think it's a great target. You generally, if you're facing a balanced druid in Soul Shuffle, you are more lucky, I would say, to not face like another caster in that team. So like for example, if you face warrior boomy, or like for example, I don't know, man, rogue boomy or evoker boomy, survival hunter boomy, or something like that in Soul Shuffle, I think boomy is a good target. Of course, if you're facing affliction warlock boomy or let's say a fire mage boomy or something like that, you should maybe not target a boomy. It's a good target. It's a great target. I would even say it's just a target, because again, it really depends on the teammate of the boomy. While for example on the must targets and great targets, they are probably the target that you should go for like 90% of the time. While boomy, it's really like highly depending on the teammates they have to actually choose for boomy. Feral Druid is actually a very good target. It dies very rapidly, and if they want to play defensively, they have to go bear form, which in turns will lose them a lot of damage. It's a really good target. You don't see a lot of Feral Druids these days, but if you see like a warrior Feral Druid or a enhancement shaman Feral Druid or a sometimes even a caster Feral Druid, if you are like a caster and you can like line the other caster, for example, you can go for Feral Druid. If you're like a melee, you can try to bait the Feral Druid behind a pillar and try to kill him. But I think it's a really must target. Maybe it's more of a great target, because I think must targets have other like specs in mind. While Feral Druid is a great target, so 90% of the time you will be right to go for Feral Druid. But I think the other 10% that you might be wrong, because they are like with a teammate that is like much more important to actually face and to target. I think as a whole, it's better to target those. Garden Druid, the same. Do not target. Just ignore it. Restoration Druid. In general, in Soul Shuffle, it's a switchable target, though. It's not really a target. It is like a switchable target. So for me, it's going to be a do not target. Again, do not target means that you do not want to focus him. What you want to do, for example, Restoration Druid is if they apply all their hearts and they have nothing else and Tranquility is gone, for example, yes, a kidney shot or anything that can actually like lock down a Resto Druid will kill them. But that's more of a switch. It's not really our target. So that's why I'm going to put it on a do not target tier. Evoker, like destruction. This is going to be a must target. It's super easy to kill. It can kite a bit, but it's still like it's a one trick. If you can survive the burst from the devastation evoker, you're going to most likely win the game. If you target him, of course you need to CC the healer, but that's all like inside the statistics I'm like having in my head, right? If you're facing a devastation evoker, of course you're going to CC the healer, so you can actually kill the devastation evoker. I think it's a great target, and you should probably always go for him. I think Preservation Invoker is most likely a bot target. It's not a do not target because you can, if you're like a melee cleave in a social environment and you can maybe like go for the Preservation Invoker, it could result to a kill, but they have a lot of things that actually can use to escape death. I'm really close to put it in do not target because it feels like it's also a very switchable target. Once the CDs are gone and defensives are gone from the Preservation Invoker, you can then switch on the Preservation Invoker. But I don't know if you want to really focus a Preservation Invoker. I'm going to put it on do not target, but again, a highly switchable target. BM Hunter. Now, BM Hunter is also a very good target, while it's probably less of a target than the two other specs from Hunter. I'm going to put it on target. It's a good solution to go for BM. Why? Because then they are in a bit of a difficulty to actually use their intimidation stun into a freezing trap onto the healer, because they want to probably put some space between the other DPSs and himself, and by doing that he will kite the other healer away. So that's also a good thing. Again, whenever I'm playing BM Hunter and I am the focus, it is very annoying. I prefer to not get focused and think that they are actually like disrespecting me, because it's a lot easier to put traps, a lot easier to actually peel for your targets. Also, Roar of Sacrifice is super interesting and super like strong, but you do not have to forget that it also makes it super easy to switch. So if they're going on you and you put Roar of Sacrifice on you, well, they could switch on your ally and he is going to probably die if he doesn't have a CD, for example. So you have to think about it. I think it's a good target, like just a target, but it's not a great target. You do not want to focus all the time with BM Hunter, because it really depends on like their allies. For example, Frost DK, BM Hunter, you want to focus the Frost DK, man. Same for Feldroot. I think in general Feldroots are the target into jungle, for example. Well, for example, Survival Hunter though is it's also a great target. Maybe not must target, but it is a great target. You do not want them to be free. They are easily killed as well. If they're not skilled, they are going to suffer pretty heavily facing you. Like for example, if you're a melee or a caster. As a caster, it's a bit more difficult, especially like dot heavy based casters, but you can make it work. And it's just interesting to go for a Survival Hunter in general. It's also melee and they can go ranged, but it's like less likely that they are going to kite you around the pillar, for example. MM Hunter is a must target. I really want to stress out that MM Hunter being free like from doing any damage is going to obliterate your team. People are like sleeping on MM Hunter. I think it's very strong. I think the damage is very strong. They're keeping on getting buffed by Blizzard for some reason on damage. I think it's a PvE thing, because in PvP I don't think MM Hunter really suffers from damage. And just imagine if he had or they had a still double tap, it would be like insane. But right now I think MM Hunter is a great target, like a must target situation, where if you have like MM Hunter with any one of them, you really want to go MM. You really want to go MM. Of course, if you have like Evoker MM, then it becomes a bit of a harder choice, and it depends about your spec or your combination of specs to go and choose the best target to go for. Arcane Mage is also a great target, actually. I think it's a great target. I don't think it's like something you want to inherently target like focus target all the time. You do want to focus the interrupts on Arcane, but it's slippery. It's very annoying to deal with if you're like a melee, and they have the damage and they have the tools to actually escape death, but still very much a great target. If you have the choice to choose a Arcane Mage to target instead of like a DH, you should for sure go for Arcane Mage. And that you can say that for a lot of specs. Again, you also have to always keep in mind that you have decisions to make and to see if your spec is easier to kite or not. Like for example, DH is going to be kited by the mage pretty heavily. while for example a BM hunter is going to eat the arcane mage alive, for example. Fire mage, I think fire mage is I will also say great target because I think frost mage is a must target. Fire mage is a lot less likely to get like interrupted on fire, although it can happen. I play mage too now, so I know that my fire mage is getting interrupted on fireballs and such. It's very annoying when you are in combust or you're wanting to go to combust. But I think if you have a choice between a frost mage and a fire mage, I think going for frost is probably the best thing you can do, because again, interrupting them on frost is much more stronger than interrupting a fire spell, for example. A frost mage that is getting interrupted on frost means no ice block, means no ice barrier, means no frost nova, means a lot less tools to actually survive. Of course, you still have a ring of fire and you still have polymorph. But I also think frost mage is very squishy at times. It is a great kiting spec though, so a lot of specs will suffer from frost mage. But again, it's 3v3. You have another teammate. You have ways to actually like be able to go for the frost mage. So I think it's a good target, like a must target as well. Again, evoker, frost mage. You have to choose and decide yourself if you are facing like a combination of those classes. Depending on your class or spec, which one you want to target. Let's talk first Brewmaster. You do not want to target it, just ignore it. It does damage, but ignores it. Mistweaver Monk, I think it's a bad target. I don't think it's like a highly it's a switchable. Again, healers are like very annoying because again, you are not going to focus from A to Z a healer, but you might say like, for example, in your lobby, like you're facing a Frost Decay Mistweaver DH, for example, which is a great comp. If they use Cocoon on Frost Decay, switch onto Mistweaver. That is something you can do, and it will result to like a lot of kills. But should I put it on do not target? I will put it on bad target because I think it's highly more susceptible to kill a Mistweaver instead of like a Preservation Evoker or Resto Druid if you're just Ooga on the Mistweaver. Because it's a lot less like tanky than a Resto Druid or a Preservation Evoker at times. Preservation Evoker is also easy to kill, but they have tools to actually regen the health that they lose, so it's something very strong. And also Mistweaver Monks now, they are not really fist weaving anymore, so if they are casting, you are basically going to interrupt him. If he's like doing the Zen Focus T, you just try to stun him, fear him, whatever you can do to actually stop the cast, and that's still going to result you to a kill. I think Windwalker is also a highly targetable spec. Now, do I think it's more targetable than Frost Decay or Unholy Decay? It's very difficult because I think it's very squishy. I think it has the mobility to be very annoying to actually like target. Most of the time, if you're like a melee and you do Fist of Fury, you have to expend a CC to actually stop it if you want to have pressure. I'm going to put it as a target because I feel like if you're like facing a Windwalker Frost Decay, you want to face a Frost Decay, you want to focus a Frost Decay, the same for Unholy Decay, the same for Survivor Hunter. I think if you're like Windwalker and you're playing with a caster, often not, you want to interrupt and focus the top casters to not be let him go free. So that's my reasoning. I think it's just a good target. I don't think it's a great target. Holy Paladin, I think it's the same as a Mistweaver Monk. It is a bad target though. You don't want to like ooga the healers in general because you want to pressure the DPS so they don't have like free reign. That's for sure. But the good thing is they are also highly killable. If you're a caster, they do not have any defensives except Divine Shield. And if they are using it and after it, they are like pretty much dead. And if they're using their sacrifice and such, so I mean, it will always depend on the classes you're facing against. If you're facing like, let's say, a rogue, a Holy Paladin can be very effective because like Assassination Rogue, for example, it can be very effective because he can just bob any bleeds out of the target of themselves, for example, as well. I think it's a bad target. I don't think it's like a do not target healer. It is most likely a bad target. Protection Paladin, also a do not target spec, but in social foe it's a bit different because you're facing another Protection Paladin. You still don't want to target the Protection Paladin. What you want is actually CC the Paladin or CC the Queen. I don't know how it's called. So the thing that actually gives a shield to your allies, for example, if you CC it or you kill it, the shield is gone. So you have ways to actually deal with Protection Paladin except like killing him, I think. Retribution Paladin, I think, is a great target. Most people would say it's a must target, but I feel like it's highly dependable on their teammates. Again, if there is a caster plus a Retribution Paladin, you might probably like switch between them, because again, like Frost Mage, Retribution Paladin, for example, you're going to go for the Retribution Paladin. He will Divine Shield. He will go to the Frost Mage. He will bop the Frost Mage, and then afterwards he will do Ice Block. So again, it's most likely that I would say Retribution Paladin is a must target, because again, I think if you leave it alone, he will do much more damage, much more like ballsiness, I would say, towards your team. But in general, again, it will depend on the class you're facing, right? Or the class you are. If you're Assassination Rogue, you don't really want to go for Retribution Paladin because he will just bop or Divine Shield themselves. It's already very hard for Assassination Rogue to actually deal with Paladins. But if you're an Affliction Warlock, you're going to decimate a Retribution Paladin, for example. So again, it's highly must targetable, I would say, for like most of the specs, except a few. And I want to put it in great targets, but again, like Paladin, Frost DK, who do you want to really stop? It's difficult because a Retribution Paladin, again, it's something you want to switch on. So you are going on the Paladin, he will Divine Shield, you switch off the target, and then you go switch back to the Paladin, or vice versa. You go on the Frost DK, he will bob the Frost DK, you go on the Paladin, he will Divine Shield himself, and you go back to the DK and he will be dead, for example. So again, it's a bit difficult, but I'm going to put it on must target because I feel like it's a must target for most respects. Disc Priest, I feel like it's a do not target spec. It's very hard to kill because they have like 2 pain suppressions. They have multiple schools of spells, so they have Shadow, Holy, and now also Radiant. So if you can kick basically like 2 times and still has something to cast in like pinch situation. I think the best CC to a priest is most likely a fear or polymorph or something like that. And stun is very interesting too, but they can pay suppression out of people while stunned. So it's really not targetable. Also not switchable. I think it's just something that you want to ASAP and try to CC with interrupts at the right time. For example, a good penance or a penance interrupts is very nice. I don't really like to interrupt Mind Blast, for example, or something like that, because I feel like they don't have a lot of healing with their shadow spells. It always depends on how you see it and how you want to face a Disc Priest. Holy Priest. I think Holy Priest is a good target. It's actually a bad target, but it's a good target for a healer. I think they have tools to survive damage, but they don't have a lot of tools, and they're going to put themselves into like a Spirit Angel, most likely, and then you can kite it pretty much and just like line it, or you go switch and then go switch back to the Holy Priest. Again, I'm not really a fan of going for healer in trees, in social, except if you are in a trees party and you have like voice or whatever, and you say, look, we're going for the healer because we are like a Uga comp or whatever, like a SM orc comp, just go for the healer, right? But in social fall, it's very hard. People are just not going to follow and not going to listen to your calls. Shadow Priest, I think Shadow Priest is a must target. I think it's something you don't want to leave it alone, especially whenever they're like casting their spells. They do insane damage, and you need to really interrupt their big casts. Void Torrent is something you should and always interrupt, stun, fear, whatever you can actually to stop it. That is the deal breaker. If they have like a fully channeled Void Torrent, you're pretty much dead. Anyone is dead actually. And I think they have like, again, one school. Yes, they have two schools, but I still think if you're kicking him on Shadow, they are pretty much doomed. So I think it's a great target. It's a must target. Of course, it depends on the specs that you're playing and the combination of specs. Evoker, Shadow Priest, for example, it's very hard to know which one you want to target. It will always depend on the spec you're playing. If you're playing, like, let's say a sub rogue, if you can stun a evoker and he has no CDs, he's dead. While Shadow Priest, they have like tools to actually go away from that, and like dispersion is so strong in so many situations. Then you have to decide between them. I would say go evoker, but again, it depends if you're playing an affliction warlock or if you're playing a destruction warlock or elemental shaman and such. It will always change based on that. Assassination rogue, I think, is a great target. I think it just dies really quickly. It's not like a sub rogue. They don't have double vanish and they don't have CDR on their vanish. CDR is CD reduction, so cooldown reduction on vanish. They don't have that. So I think it's a great target, especially in this meta where they don't really have a lot of damage. They have damage, they can do damage, but it's not like insane damage. It is alright damage. So for me, it's going to be a great target. Outlaw Rogue, it's also a great target. They are not as tanky as before. They do not have that much damage though. So it's really complicated. You can leave it alone because you know there is not that much damage, and you could go for another target to actually reduce their target throughput. So I would say they are just target. They're just a good target. I guess depends on a lot of situations. It's highly killable, but do you want to go for him and reduce the damage from that target a little bit, or do you want to go for, like, let's say a caster or a frost decay to actually reduce the damage drastically? I think other rogue pretty much a target. Subtlety rogue, I think it is a bad target. It is very bait, the same as Havoc. They have like 2 double vanish. Yes, they can die in a stun, but again, a great sub rogue is very annoying to deal with and very annoying to actually target. As a caster, they have, like, again, Cloak of Shadows, and now they have the PvP talent. So even as an arms warrior, if you put all the bleeds on a sub rogue, they're just going to cloak and all the bleeds are gone. So I do not think a subtlety rogue is a good target. I think it's just a bad target. It's like, again, depending on the situations, depending on your spec and classes. But I think you really should not go for sub rogue. Even though you can stop a bit of the damage, you can just expend a CC for that, and you should not really try to focus him down to kill him. It will take too much time. Elemental Shaman, I think Elemental Shaman is also a must target. Again, you have a lot of must targets. It is normal. I still think casters left alone are doing too much damage. I think Elemental Shaman, though, it might be on the same level as Arcane Mage and Fire Mage. For the same reason as said, it's not really as easy to interrupt. You can interrupt on a lot of things, but it's not easy to interrupt because they have a lot of schools of spells, and they wear mail, so it's also a bit more tanky. For me, it is. You can train it down. Again, it's highly susceptible that you're going for an Elemental Shaman, but if you're like facing Elemental Shaman, Affliction Warlock, you do want to stop Affliction Warlock. In my mind, Affliction Warlock is a must target, for example. Spoiler alert. Enhancement Shaman, I think it's also a great target. You have a lot of great targets. You may say I'm a bit exaggerating it, but it is just a great target. Again, depending on the specs you're playing, if you're like a sub-rogue, a kidney shot, they are defensive. If they don't have a trinket, they're going to die, for example. They have, like, again, PvP talent where they can spend damaging abilities to actually get a free healing from it. Not a free healing, but like free Maelstrom, like instant heal. But if you're not targeting him, they're going to spam their damage pretty much like 100% of the time. but also they're going to heal their allies pretty easily. So for me, it's going to be Enhancement Shaman, one of the great targets out there. I'll play Enhancement Shaman and I'm very annoyed whenever I am the target. Restoration Shaman, I think Restoration Shaman is a bad target. The same approach, really. You can kill him, you can train him, but do you want to do that in social form? I don't think so. So that's why for me it's going to be a bad target. Must target Affliction Warlock. I think it is one of the strongest classes if left alone, but if you're not left alone, it's one of the weakest classes in my mind. If you're going to give him free reign, you can basically say goodbye to your CR because he's going to take it regardless. Yes, you can target the off DPS and interrupt everything from the Affliction Warlock, but it's much easier to go for the Affliction Warlock and stun and fear and interrupt every time he's going to start a cast, for example. And so yeah, I think Affliction Warlock is a great target. Demonology Warlock is just a target, the same as Boomy. They have tools to actually run away, they have tools to actually be tanky, they have quasi unstoppable damage because it is pet based. The same as a BM Hunter, really, you have a choice to not go for Demonology Warlock. Again, depending on the classes, depending on your specs, depending on melee or not melee, you can go for Demonology Warlock. But let's say you're facing DH Demonology Warlock, you still want to go for Demonology Warlock. Destruction Warlock is also a highly must target because you do not want them to cast Chaos Bolts. And interrupting them is not enough. You really want to go on them to actually do a stun whenever you feel like there's going to be like 3 flying Chaos Bolts onto your face. You want to fear him, you want to actually like use mini CCs to actually stop the casting from Destruction Warlock. If you face Destruction Warlock, Affliction Warlock, well, pick your poison. Choose your poison, drink your poison, and deal with it. I think Destruction Warlock is very strong as well. It's more squishy than Demonology Warlock, for example, and they are also getting nerfed next patch, at least this patch, I think. Tomorrow in EU, you are going to get nerfed, so pretty much you're going to be a very good target. Not on the same way where you're going to be highly killable as, like, let's say a Frost Mage, but at least if you stop their damage, they are going to be halfway dead normally. Arms Warrior, I think it's just a target. It's a good target. I don't think it's like one of the deciding factors though. If you have choices, you should not go for Arms Warrior because you have like other specs out there. But if you have no choice, like for example, you face I don't know, Boomy, Arms Warrior, it's very difficult to go for Arms Warrior. You will go for Boomy, but depending on your spec, you could actually go for Arms Warrior and just ignore the Boomy and CC the Boomy and that's it. But again, in my mind, I think most likely it is just a target and not like a 100% go for Arms Warrior kind of target. Fury Warrior, I think it's more targetable than Arms, so I'm going to put a bit more left on the tier, but I still think it's a target. I think if you're facing Frost Decay Fury, you want to go for Frost Decay. Unholy Decay Fury, you want to go for Unholy Decay. Assassination Rogue with a Fury, you want to go for Assassination Rogue. Yeah, I can do that for every single spec out there. While, for example, it becomes a bit difficult on the target tier. If you're facing Fury with a Demonology Warlock, you want to go for Demonology Warlock, but there are situations where you want to go for Fury, and the same for Balance Druid, for example, the same for Windwalker. So again, I think, yeah, you got it just out there. And then Protection Warrior pretty much do not target. They do not do a lot of damage, they are not that tanky as well, but it will take too much time to actually kill them. And I think it's much more useful to go for other classes and other specs. So this is my tier list for arenas like Social and explaining which targets are the best targets to go for. Again, it's very subjective. Some people might say Subtlety Rogue is super easy to kill, just go for Sub Rogue, and that's good for you. I think I'm playing a lot of specs, a lot of classes in general. Like, I have nearly everything level 70. I even have 2 mages level 70 now, and 2 rogues level 70. So I kind of take this all into account. Also, whenever I'm playing, like, let's say destruction warlock or affliction warlock, whenever I am focused, the game is much harder than whenever I'm not focused. For example, same for frost mage. If you are like free reigning, you do damage like no tomorrow. You're going to kill someone with a one shot. Same for shadow priest. Same for MM. Like, I'm thinking like this, and that is my reasoning. Again, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Thank you for the subscriber to again giving me this idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. I wanted to make it because a lot of people actually asked for it, and I think it's a great video idea by itself because it was also a very fun one to make. Again, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and we will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.